Come again. We have been speaking of mother wisdom that works in nature's breast. Always she drives the souls to new attempt. The soul is never allowed to stagnate, to be satisfied with one attempt. Whether it succeeds or fails, it is always egged on to new and still more new attempts. Always her magical infinitude forces to aspire the inert brute elements. The inert brute elements in our nature are forced to aspire to something higher by the magical infinitude of this mother wisdom. As one who has all infinity to waste, she scatters the seed of the eternal strength. This mother force, mother power, she scatters everywhere the seeds of the eternal strength, as if, as one who has all infinity to waste. She doesn't care whether every seed bears fruit or not. She has time, she has eternal time. And where does she scatter? On a half animate and crumbling mold, earth, matter, plants heaven's delight in the heart's passionate mire. Mire is muddy, created by the passions of the heart. In that mire, wet mud, she plants the heaven's delight. Pours Godhead seeking into a bare beast frame, that is an animal frame. There, the seeking for Godhead that is planted in the animal body hides immortality in a mask of death. Apparently it is death, end of things. But actually death is a mask of immortality, because the soul doesn't die. The soul only changes its body, and death is actually a helper in casting off old and outworn bodies and resume career in newborn bodies. So death is really a process of life, as Sri Aurobindo says in Life Divine, a mask of immortality. Immortality affirms itself through the punctuation marks of death. Now, having described this process of the self-affirmation of the mother wisdom in nature's breast, the poet relates it to Savitri, who is just born, once more. That means it has happened before in the history of the earth. Once more, that will, that mother will, that divine's will, put on an earthly shape. It assumed the body of Savitri, a mind empowered from truth's immutable seat, was framed for vision and interpreting act. The mind with which she was endowed was not an ordinary mind. It was a mind that was charged by truth from its highest immutable, unmovable seat. And that mind was specially framed for vision, future vision of what is to happen, and interpreting act. Every act that takes place, it had a facility to interpret it rightly. And instruments, apart from mind, apart from will, there are other faculties, and deva, instruments, were sovereignly designed to express divinity in terrestrial science. Her instruments of nature were designed specifically to express divinity in terrestrial, that is, earthly science, not to express animality of an evolving creature, but to express divinity in a special chosen vehicle for manifestation, outlined by the pressure of this new descent. It is a fresh descent of divine will, divine mind, and divinely designed instruments. Outlined by that pressure, a lovelier body formed than earth had known. Till now, earth had not known such a lovely body as was Savitri's. As yet it was a small baby. So he says, as yet a prophecy only and a hint of what is to come. The glowing arc of a charmed unseen hold. What you could see is only a small arc, but that arc, as it develops, it would become a big circle, and that part of the circle which is not yet seen, it is something charmed. The glowing arc of a charmed unseen whole, it came into the sky of mortal life. The glowing arc of the moon always comes in the sky. So to complete the imagery, he speaks into the sky of mortal life. Bright like the crescent horn of a gold moon, returning in a faint illumined eve. The whole thing is compared to a gold moon. Only a small horn you can see after the new moon. The crescent forms gradually, and as if it is returning in a faint, it's not a bright evening, faint illumined eve. You begin to see the crescent horn of a gold moon. 15 days later, you will start seeing the full orb of the moon. At first, glimmering like an unshaped idea, shining like an idea which has not yet got a firm outline, a definite form. Passive she lay, sheltered in wordless sleep. She lay in sleep without word, without dreams, without movement. She is sheltered in that, passive, involved and drowned in matter's giant trance. The body, representing matter, is in a great deep trance, as it were, and she is drowned in it, this baby. An infant heart of the deep caved world plan. She is the tender infant heart of a world plan, deep caved. That plan is there in deep chamber. The whole thing is compared to a cave, and in the deepest chamber is the world plan. And that infant heart, in that cradle of divine in conscience rocked. It is a child that is being rocked in a cradle, and that cradle is of divine in conscience. And it is cradled by the universal ecstasy of the suns. The suns are full of ecstasy because a divine child is born and a divine infant is growing. And that very ecstasy of the suns rocks the cradle of divine in conscience, in which this infant heart is lying passive. Some missioned power in the half-awakened frame nursed a transcendent birth's dumb, glorious seed, for which this vivid tenement was made. Now, this tenement is this body. In this vivid, vibrant body, there was a dumb, glorious seed. There was a soul spark. It was not articulate, but yet it was glorious, and it was a seed of something to come, a transcendent birth. Not an evolving birth from below, but a birth from above. And what was implanted in the body was a seed. And that seed was nursed by some missioned power. There was a special power at work in that half-wakened frame. The physical body was not yet fully awake. It was again and again going into sleep. And there, a power missioned for a special purpose was nursing the seed to grow. And as a result, but soon the link of soul with form grew sure. Very soon, the link between the outer form and the inner soul was established and became sure. Now, in her case, it was fairly easy. But in the case of most humans, it takes a long time. Even when one becomes conscious of the soul, the passage between the soul and the outer awareness of the outer body, outer form, is blocked. It is full of curtains and veils, of impurities, tamas, ignorance, blindness, inertia, and it is blocked. So it is only as a result of a concentrated evolution, a special effort of discipline, that this passage can be cleared and a link established. To establish this link is itself a sadhana of a lifetime. We speak as if it is just one step to link oneself with the psychic. But it is a major realization. And mother was very optimistic, charitable, when she said it takes 30 years for one to have what she calls a psychic realization. To be awake to the psychic is one thing. To let the psychic function in our day-to-day life, even sporadically, is another thing. But to make it a constant active factor is a very difficult achievement. And unless all the time something in us is turned towards that, whatever the work, whatever the occupation, some part must be attentive to that. Only with that what is called constant remembrance, dhruva smritihi in the Upanishad, is it induced to vibrate. Many speak, my psychic is like this, my psychic told me. It is cruel to disillusion those who speak of the psychic as if it is an everyday affair. Many mistake the emotional being for the psychic. For in this system, what is called the heart center, in the yogic parlance, is the seat of emotions. What is called anahata chakra in the tantras is the seat of emotions. And so, when that center is active, fairly purified emotions, there is a great feeling of joy, a felicity, appreciation of beauty, and one is tempted to take it to be the psychic. But Sri Aurobindo points out that it is behind the emotional center that there is the psychic. So actually he says there are two centers at this level. In the front is what is normally called the heart center, the center of the emotional being, and behind it is the psychic. The difference between the emotional being and the psychic is, to put it in a few words, there is a unbroken sweetness when the psychic is awake. You interpret every experience in terms of harmony. You react to everything in terms of peace and harmony. Whereas from the emotional level, you may be ecstatic, you may be enthusiastic and joyous, and it has a reaction. But with the psychic, it is a continuous thread of love. And that love is different from the love at the emotional level in this, that it does not ask for recognition, it does not seek to impose itself, it exists for its own sake. It does not need another form on which to fix itself. So, the psychic or the inner soul is something deeper than the emotional being. The passage to the psychic is naturally through the purified emotional. The gross emotions, the impurities that clog the emotional being have to be removed. And the true emotions, the purified emotions, they act as semiconductors for the psychic consciousness to come up. And when he speaks of the link between the soul and the form, it is this constant connection between the psychic and the outer being that he speaks. It takes a long time, but once it is done, everything else becomes quick, because the initiative is taken away from our hands. And when the psychic is allowed to develop to its full stature, it joins the Jivatman, the central being at the top, which is divine, and thereafter it is the divine will that rules one's life. So these fortunate beings are in a state of perpetual joy, without responsibility, weighing responsibility, do not care for suffering, pain or death, because they live in a consciousness of eternity. It is only in the psychic that you have a living sense of eternity. Now, this had to be made clear, because one tends to confuse the emotional being with the psychic being. And in no other yogic philosophy is this distinction made between the what is called the heart center, the Anahata chakra, and the soul station, the psychic center. So, as Savitri grows, the link of soul with form grows sure. It is this linking of the soul with the outer form that is an important development as children grow. That link at an unconscious level forms as a child grows. Say after 10, 12, that growth is not very rapid, because all the other parts of the being start growing. And it is when this soul grows and spreads itself, communicates itself to the outer being that there is a natural condition of tenseness among children. I have known mother describing how a child, that child is now well grown up and he has two children, I suppose now, that's another matter. Now he was getting, a small boy, maybe 3 years, 4 years, fever, high fever, and doctor could not diagnose. So the parents were anxious. Parents were here. So mother said, don't take the child to the doctor, because the fever is not a disease in this case. The soul, I can see the soul growing, peeping through the face, but the body is so frail, it needs time to adjust itself. And this lack of adjustment, the effort of the body and the soul to coordinate and regulate themselves, has certain results, one of which is fever. So when children get fever, particularly in surroundings like this, where there is a constant pressure on the soul to awake, to emerge, fever is very common. Doctors, medical doctors who don't believe in these things, they will give tablets, they will give treatment, injections. But the fever has its own way of coming up and going down. So this itself, for a spiritual observer, it is a great education. If the body really fails to adjust itself and respond to the demands of the soul, there is a breakdown. And the soul may either decide to change or wait. That is another subject. But this linking of the soul with the form, it starts at childhood, continues throughout our life. And yoga is a discipline which first seeks to build this bridge by turning our gaze inward first, that there is a reality inside. And once you get a glimpse of the reality, what we call the soul, the self, the psychic, whatever the name, that it is something aloof, something not involved in the vicissitudes of time and circumstance, then you have a desire or an aspiration to be that, to live there. And that is the beginning of the aspiration for spiritual life. Thereafter, if we are sincere, we should use each circumstance of life as a footstool to reach that, to see what lesson it has got for us in our journey to the self, to the soul. Because for a seeker, for an awakened man, Mother points out, every circumstance has a meaning. Everything has a significance. And if we start observing the significance yields itself with a slight effort, and life becomes what Mother calls interesting. Interesting in this sense that there is not a moment of dullness, not a moment of waste. The central point is the soul, the psyche. All the rest is instrumental nature. In broader terms, we say it is realization of the individual divine. God within us, the divine consciousness within us. First to conceive of it, next to need it, third to aspire for it, fourth to work for it. Each is a step, and all these are time consuming. Mere work, mere reading, mere rituals will not take us far. They do their part. I won't say they are useless. They create the necessary atmosphere, they create the necessary impinging vibrations, but they are only preparatory steps. Thereafter, one has to work within. Work without can only be a spill out, but the main is the work within. I hope we have not digressed, but we can continue. But soon the link of soul with form grew sure. We'll start again with that sentence next time, keeping in mind all that we have talked today. Now, before we meditate, I have to say that I am once again called and I have to go out, and for the next two sessions, due sessions, I won't be here. So our next satsang will be hopefully on the 11th, Sunday at 6:30.